My girlfriend teased a surprising twist in our relationship, then went silent. I found her diary about a backup boyfriend who turned out to be my own brother. I waited until his graduation party to propose to my new millionaire fiancé in front of both of them, leaving them homeless. My brother graduated from business school on a Saturday in May. Cap and gown. Family in the audience. Cake in the backyard after. And me. On one knee. In the middle of his graduation party. Proposing to a woman he'd never met. While my ex-girlfriend stood 6 feet away holding a plate of potato salad and watching the life she'd planned to steal collapse in real time. I didn't plan it to be cruel. I planned it to be visible. There's a difference. Cruel is private and unnecessary. Visible is public and earned. And the two people standing in that backyard had earned every second of what they were about to see. My name is Barrett. I'm 29. My brother Shaw is 26. He just graduated. Summa cum laude. Dean's List. The golden boy. The family investment. The son my parents remortgaged part of their house to put through school. And the man who spent the last 8 months sleeping with my girlfriend while she wrote about it in a leather-bound diary she kept in her nightstand like it was a romance novel instead of a confession. The diary. That's where this starts. Not with the affair. Not with Shaw. With a book. I met Kira when I was 25. She was 24. Interior design assistant at a firm downtown. She was beautiful in a way that made you forget to finish your sentence. Dark hair. Serious eyes. A smile she rationed like it was expensive. She didn't give it to everyone. When she gave it to you it felt like a reward. We dated for 4 years. Lived together for 2.5. My apartment. My lease. She moved in with a suitcase and a leather-bound diary she wrote in every night before bed. I asked her once what she wrote. She said, just thoughts. Processing. She said, it's private. I said, of course. I never opened it. For 4 years. Because I respected boundaries. Because I trusted her. Because the man I was at 25 believed that privacy was sacred and that the woman lying next to me was exactly who she appeared to be. She wasn't. 6 months before the graduation party. December. Kira started acting different. Not dramatically. Subtly. The way weather changes before a storm. The pressure shifts but the sky still looks clear. She said something one night that stuck. We were in bed. She was on her phone. She put it down and said, hey. I think there might be a surprising twist coming in our relationship. I said, what kind of twist? She smiled. The expensive smile. She said, a good one. But I'm not ready to tell you yet. Give me a few weeks. I said, you can't tease something like that and not explain it. She said, trust me. You'll love it. I thought she was pregnant. That was my first guess. Or maybe she'd gotten a promotion and wanted to plan a trip. Or maybe she wanted to get married and was working up to hinting about it. I spent 2 weeks imagining possibilities. All of them good. Because I was a man in love with a woman who just told him something exciting was coming. But then the silence started. She stopped mentioning the twist. When I brought it up she said, I'm still figuring it out. When I pressed she said, Barrett. Don't rush me. I'll tell you when I'm ready. Weeks became a month. A month became 2. The twist never arrived. The silence around it grew. And the small changes I'd noticed in December got louder. She started coming home later. Not drastically. 30 minutes. An hour. She said the firm was busy. New clients. She started guarding her phone more carefully. Not hiding it. Just aware of it. Knowing where it was at all times. Angling it away when I walked past. She started mentioning Shaw more. My brother. Shaw said something hilarious at dinner. Shaw's doing amazing in his program. Shaw's going to be so successful. Shaw. I'm going to be honest about something. I didn't suspect Shaw. Not once. Because Shaw was my little brother. 3 years younger. We grew up sharing a bedroom until I was 13. I taught him to ride a bike. I drove him to his first job interview. I co-signed his first apartment lease when he was 19 because he didn't have enough credit history. Shaw wasn't a threat. Shaw was my brother. That's what I believed until I opened the diary. The diary. March. 3 months after the twist tease. Kira was at work. I was home. Sick day. Flu. I was lying in bed and I knocked the nightstand reaching for water. The drawer slid open. The diary was right there. Leather bound. Brown. A pen clipped to the front. I didn't plan to read it. I picked it up to put it back. And it fell open. To a page near the middle. And I saw a name. Shaw. One word. My brother's name. In my girlfriend's handwriting. In her private diary. On a page dated 2 months ago. I read the entry. Then the one before it. Then the one before that. Then I went back to September and I read forward. Every page. Every entry. For 90 minutes. While the flu burned through my body and a different kind of sickness replaced it. The diary wasn't a journal. It was a strategy document. Kira had been writing in it for over a year. And the content was not processing or thoughts. It was a plan. Mapped out. Phase by phase. With timelines. Let me tell you what the diary said. Not paraphrased. The actual structure. Phase 1 was titled, Assessment. Dated 14 months before I read it. She wrote about me. About our relationship. About my income. About the apartment. About my family's financial situation. She wrote, Barrett is stable. Good salary. No debt. Family is middle class but the parents have property. The house is worth $380,000 even with the remortgage. She wrote, Barrett is a good option. Solid. Predictable. But not the ceiling. Not the ceiling. She wrote that about me. In a diary. While sleeping next to me. Phase 2 was titled, Backup. Dated 11 months before I read it. This is where Shaw appeared. She wrote, Shaw graduates in May. MBA. He already has 2 offers. Starting salary around $95,000 with signing bonus. Trajectory is 6 figures within 2 years. She wrote, Shaw is ambitious. Charming. More upward potential than Barrett. If I position correctly I can maintain Barrett as primary while developing Shaw as the backup option. Backup option. She categorized my brother as a backup option. Like a savings account. Like a second phone. Like an insurance policy she could activate if the primary coverage wasn't enough. Phase 3 was titled, Development. This is where the affair started. 8 months before I read it. She wrote about engineering situations with Shaw. Showing up early to family dinners before I arrived. Texting him about career advice. She wrote, I asked Shaw about his internship presentation. He was grateful for the interest. Barrett never asks him about school. This is an opening. She studied us. She found the gap between me and my brother and she wedged herself into it. I didn't ask Shaw about school because Shaw was 25 and I assumed he was handling it. She turned that assumption into an opportunity. Phase 4 was titled, Transition. This is where it became physical. 6 months before I read it. She wrote, First time with Shaw. His apartment. Tuesday. Barrett was at a work dinner. Shaw is. She described it. In detail. In handwriting. In a diary she kept in the nightstand 3 inches from where I slept. She wrote about it like a restaurant review. Clinical. Evaluative. She compared us. Physically. She wrote, Shaw is more attentive. Barrett is routine. She wrote about it 6 more times over the next 4 months. Each entry more specific. Each one filed under Phase 4 like progress notes. Phase 5 was titled, Decision Timeline. This was the most recent section. Dated 3 weeks before I read it. She wrote, Shaw graduates in May. Once he's employed and earning I'll need to make the transition. Plan, tell Barrett about the twist around March or April. Frame it as wanting to take a break for personal growth. Move out slowly. Transition to Shaw by June. If Shaw's salary is confirmed I execute. If not I stay with Barrett and reassess in 12 months. The twist. The surprising twist she teased in bed in December. It wasn't a pregnancy. It wasn't a promotion. It wasn't a proposal. It was her exit strategy. She was going to tell me she needed space. Frame it as personal growth. And transition to my brother like changing lanes on a highway. She had a decision timeline. A literal timeline. With my brother's graduation as the trigger point. And she wrote it in a diary she kept next to the bed she shared with me. I closed the diary. I put it back in the drawer. I lay in bed for 2 hours. The flu didn't matter anymore. The fever didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was the 90 pages I'd just read that proved the woman I loved had been auditing my life for 14 months and shopping for an upgrade using my own brother. I didn't confront her. Not that day. Not the next day. Not for 3 months. Because the diary taught me something. If Kira could plan for 14 months I could plan for 3. Week 1. I contacted a lawyer. Not for divorce. We weren't married. For lease protection. My name. My apartment. My deposit. I wanted documentation that she had no legal claim to the space. The lawyer confirmed. She was a guest on my lease. Not a co-tenant. She had occupant rights but no ownership claim. Removal was straightforward with proper notice. Week 2. I moved money. Not dramatically. I redirected my direct deposit to a new account she didn't know about. I maintained the joint expenses account with minimum balance. Enough to look normal. Not enough to lose. Week 3. I told Shaw I wanted to plan something special for his graduation party. A surprise. I said, I want to do something big. In the backyard. In front of the family. He said, bro, you don't have to do that. I said, I want to. You've worked hard. You deserve a moment. He didn't know the moment wasn't for him. Week 4. I met Ophelia. Not by design. By accident. The kind of accident that makes you believe in timing. Ophelia ran into me at a coffee shop. Literally. She was carrying 2 lattes and I turned without looking and one of them ended up on my shirt. She said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. She grabbed napkins. She was mortified. I said, It's fine. It's just a shirt. She said, let me buy you a new coffee. I said, you don't have to. She said, I spilled an oat milk latte on a stranger. I'm buying the coffee. It's not negotiable. We sat for 2 hours. She told me she ran a cybersecurity firm she'd founded at 26. Revenue last year, $4.2 million. She was 30. Single by choice. Sharp. Direct. No games. No phases. No diary with a 5-step plan. I told her I was in a complicated situation. She said, complicated how? I said, I'm about to end a 4-year relationship and I don't want to drag you into the wreckage. She said, I'm not afraid of wreckage. I build firewalls for a living. We kept seeing each other. Not secretly. I wasn't hiding. I just wasn't announcing. Kira was too focused on phase 5 to notice that the man she was planning to leave was already leaving. The 3 months between finding the diary and the graduation party were the loneliest months of my life. I shared a bed with a woman I knew was lying. I ate dinner with a woman who had rated me on a 5-phase scale and found me lacking. I said goodnight to a woman who was counting the days until my brother's salary unlocked her exit. And she had no idea I'd read every word. May. Graduation day. Saturday. Shaw walked across the stage. Family cheered. My parents were proud. My mother cried. My father clapped with both hands over his head. Shaw was the first person in our family to get an MBA. It meant something. It was real. The party was at my parents' house. Backyard. 30 people. Burgers. Music. A banner that said congratulations Shaw. Kira was there. She'd picked out her outfit carefully. I noticed because the diary noted that Shaw liked her in blue. She wore a blue dress. Shaw was surrounded by friends. Kira hovered near him. Not obviously. Casually. The way she'd been doing for 8 months. Positioning. Phase 3 in real time. Ophelia arrived at 3 p.m. I'd invited her as my guest. Nobody knew who she was. My mother said, Barrett. Who's this? I said, this is Ophelia. I'd like you to meet her. Kira was watching from across the yard. She saw Ophelia. She saw me introduce her to my parents. Her face flickered. A micro-expression. Confusion. Recalculation. She was running her own spreadsheet and a new variable had just appeared. 4 p.m. The speeches. My father spoke. My mother spoke. Shaw's advisor spoke. Then I stood up. I said, I want to say something. 30 people. Backyard. Burgers. A banner. A brother in a graduation cap. I said, Shaw. Congratulations. You've worked incredibly hard and this family is proud of you. And I mean that. Genuinely. Then I turned to Ophelia. I said, I also want to take this moment to do something I've been planning for a while. I got on one knee. In front of 30 people. At my brother's graduation party. I pulled out a ring. I said, Ophelia. I know we've only been together for 3 months. But you walked into my life at the exact moment I needed to be reminded that honest people exist. You didn't have a 5-phase plan. You didn't keep score. You spilled coffee on me and bought me a replacement and that was more real than anything I've experienced in 4 years. Will you marry me? She said yes. She was crying. The crowd erupted. My mother was confused but happy. My father was grinning. Shaw was not grinning. Shaw was staring at me with a face I'd never seen on him. Not guilt yet. Confusion. Why was his brother proposing to a stranger at his graduation party? What happened to Kira? What was going on? Kira. Standing 6 feet away. Blue dress. Plate of potato salad. Her face. I need to describe it because I've been waiting 3 months to see it. It was the face of a person watching their own plan be dismantled by someone else's plan. The face of a strategist who just realized she'd been out-strategized. Her diary had 5 phases. Mine had 1. Show up. Tell the truth. And move forward in front of everyone. After the applause died down I turned to the crowd. I said, one more thing. I want to be transparent about why I'm doing this today. Not to upstage Shaw's accomplishment. But because this is the day my life changed. And the people in this backyard deserve to know why. I reached into my jacket. I pulled out the diary. The leather-bound diary. Brown. Pen clipped to the front. I held it up. I said, this is Kira's diary. She's been writing in it for 14 months. It contains a 5-phase plan to transition from me to Shaw. Phase 1 assessed my financial value. Phase 2 identified Shaw as a backup option. Phase 3 engineered a relationship with him. Phase 4 documented 6 months of sleeping with him. Phase 5 scheduled the transition to coincide with Shaw's graduation and first salary. 30 people. Silent. The same silence from every exposure scene I've lived through in the last 3 months. The silence of people hearing the truth and recalibrating everything they thought they knew. I said, I found it in March. I've known for 3 months. I didn't say anything because I wanted everyone to hear it at the same time. From the source. I set the diary on the table. Next to the graduation cake. Next to the banner that said "Congratulations, Shaw." Kira. She didn't speak. She didn't run. She stood there. Blue dress. Potato salad plate trembling in her hands. The expensive smile was gone. What was underneath was blank. Buffering. A system crash in real time. Shaw looked at Kira. Then at me. His face shifted from confusion to understanding to horror in about 4 seconds. He said, "Barrett." He stopped. Because there was nothing to say. The diary said everything. His name was in it. Dates. Times. Locations. His apartment. Phase 4. My mother walked to the table. She picked up the diary. She opened it. She read for about 30 seconds. Then she closed it. She looked at Shaw. Her golden boy. Her MBA graduate. She said, "Shaw. Is this true?" Shaw looked at the ground. He said, "Mom." She said, "Is this true?" He said, "Yes." My mother set the diary down. She took off her party hat. She said, "Everyone. I'm sorry. I need a moment." She walked inside the house. My father followed her. The screen door closed with a sound that ended the party more effectively than any announcement. People started leaving. Quietly. Some said congratulations to Ophelia. Some said nothing. Some looked at Shaw with disappointment. Some looked at Kira with disgust. Nobody looked at me with anything other than understanding. Kira left first. She put the plate of potato salad on the table. She picked up her purse. She walked through the side gate. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at Shaw. She walked out the way she walked into the hotel room entries in her diary. Methodically. Without acknowledgement. Shaw sat in a lawn chair. Alone. In a backyard with a banner that said his name. The graduation party was over. Not because of time. Because of truth. I walked to him. I sat in the chair next to him. I said, "I didn't do this to ruin your day." He said, "Then why did you do it today?" I said, "Because your graduation is the trigger date in her diary. Phase 5 activates when you get employed. She was going to leave me for you within weeks of today. I wanted you to know what you were getting. Not a girlfriend. A portfolio manager. You were an investment. Not a person." He looked at me. He said, "Did you read all of it?" I said, "Every page." He said, "The comparisons?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Barrett. I'm sorry." I said, "I know. But sorry doesn't erase 8 months. And it doesn't erase the fact that you knew she was with me and you did it anyway." He said, "I thought." He stopped. He said, "She told me you were having problems. She said you were checked out. She said you didn't care about her anymore." I said, "She told you what phase 3 required her to tell you. She engineered your perception of my relationship to create an opening. And you walked through it." He said, "I didn't know about the diary." I said, "You didn't need to know about the diary to know she was your brother's girlfriend." He didn't respond. I stood up. I said, "I hope the degree was worth it. I hope the career is everything you planned. I mean that. But we're going to need a lot of time before this is anything close to normal." He nodded. I walked to Ophelia. She was waiting by the car. She said, "You okay?" I said, "I'm better than I've been in 3 months." The aftermath. Kira went back to our apartment. Her key still worked. I hadn't changed the locks yet because I needed her to get her things. She packed over 3 days. By Tuesday she was out. She left the diary. On the nightstand. Open to the last entry. The entry dated 2 weeks before the party that said, "Barrett still doesn't suspect anything." Shaw confirmed his start date is June 15th. Transition is on schedule. On schedule. She was on schedule. And she left the diary open to prove it. One final act of defiance from a woman whose entire plan had just been read aloud in a backyard. I closed the diary. I put it in a box. I put the box in storage. Evidence. In case she ever tries to rewrite the narrative. Shaw's job offer. The one with the $95,000 starting salary and the signing bonus. The company ran a standard background and reference check. Nothing came up from the party. But Shaw's confidence was shattered. He deferred his start date by 2 months. He told the company he needed personal time. They accommodated. Barely. He moved to a different city. Took the job eventually. We haven't spoken since the party. My mother talks to him weekly. She says he's doing fine. She says fine the way you say fine when the person you're talking about is surviving but not living. Kira. She moved in with a friend. Then to another city. I don't track her. I don't care. The last thing I heard was from a mutual acquaintance who said Kira was working at a different design firm and had started dating someone new. He said, "She seems happy." I said, "She seemed happy with me too. For 4 years. Seeming is what she does." Ophelia and I got married. For real. Not the backyard proposal. A proper ceremony 4 months later. Small. Meaningful. 40 people. My parents. Her parents. Friends who saw the proposal at the graduation party and stayed. My mother pulled me aside at the reception. She said, "Barrett, I need to ask you something." I said, "What?" She said, "Did you plan the proposal for Shaw's party because you wanted to hurt him?" I said, "I planned it for Shaw's party because Kira's diary said his graduation was the trigger for phase 5. She was going to leave me because of that date. So I used the same date to leave her. I didn't pick the timing. She did. I just showed up on her schedule." My mother looked at me. She said, "You're more strategic than I gave you credit for." I said, "I learned from a diary." She said, "Don't become the diary, Barrett." I said, "I won't." Ophelia and I live in her townhouse. She runs her firm. I work in project management. We split everything. She doesn't keep a diary. She doesn't have phases. She doesn't assess financial ceilings. She tells me where she's going and goes there. She tells me what she's thinking and means it. She is the opposite of a 5-phase plan. She's a 1-phase person. Show up. Be real. That's it. The diary is in a storage unit. The ring I bought for the proposal cost $14,000. I bought it with savings I'd hidden during the 3 months of planning. Ophelia said I didn't need to spend that much. I said, "The ring isn't for you. It's for the 30 people in the backyard who needed to see that the man Kira filed under not the ceiling found someone who thinks he's the roof and the foundation and every wall in between." She said, "That's the cheesiest thing you've ever said." I said, "I've been holding it in for 3 months. Cut me some slack." She laughed. "The real kind. Not the expensive kind you ration. The kind you give because you have so much of it that holding it back would be wasteful." Kira kept a diary about backup boyfriends and exit strategies and financial ceilings. I keep a wife who spills coffee on strangers and builds firewalls for a living and laughs like it's free. The diary is closed. The chapter isn't.